The envelope was left under her bike. No name, no return address, just a plain white envelope tucked under the front tire of Dora's motorcycle at 6 in the morning, sitting in the compound parking lot like someone had placed it there in the dark and walked away without looking back. Dora almost didn't see it. She had her helmet in one hand and her coffee in the other, and she was already thinking about the road when she looked down and went completely still. She set the coffee on the seat, crouched down, picked up the envelope carefully, the way you pick up something you're not sure about, and opened it. Inside was one photograph, printed on plain paper, the kind you print at home when you don't want a record anywhere. Grainy, shot from a distance through what looked like a storefront window, long lens, the subject not aware of the camera. It showed a woman in an Iron Magnolia cut, the vest, the patch, the full colors, standing over a man seated at a desk. The man's posture said everything. Shoulders in, head down, the posture of someone being made to feel very small by someone standing over them. On the desk in front of him, an envelope, thick, the kind that holds cash. Dora stared at the photograph for a long time. Then she looked at the patch on the woman's back. She knew that patch. She designed it herself 9 years ago, at a kitchen table with a sketchpad and 3 different pens. She knew every line of it, and she knew the woman wearing it. Her name was Vicky Ramos. 6 years in Iron Magnolia, road name Chrome. One of the first women Dora had personally recruited. Fast on a bike, sharp in a meeting. The kind of woman who made every room she walked into feel more serious. Dora had trusted her with the club's supply runs, with new member vetting, with the kind of responsibility you only gave someone you believed in completely. Dora turned the photograph over. On the back, in handwriting she didn't recognize, were 4 words. She's not the only one. Dora stood up. She didn't move for a full 30 seconds. Just stood there in the early morning quiet of the compound parking lot with the photograph in her hand, and the coffee going cold on the seat behind her, and the weight of what she was holding settling into every part of her chest. Then she put the photograph in her inside jacket pocket, zipped it closed, put her helmet on, and she rode. Not to Chrome, not yet. First she needed to know exactly what she was walking into. Dora spent 3 days finding out. She didn't tell anyone. Not Roxy, not Bex, not Rooster. And Rooster was the person Dora told everything to eventually. The way you tell everything to the person who has been next to you long enough to be part of how you think. She told no one because she had learned a long time ago that when you suspect something inside your own house, you move alone until you know for certain. Because if you're wrong, you've poisoned something that can't be unpoisoned. And if you're right, you need to know the full shape of it before anyone else does. She started with the man in the photograph. It took her 1 day to find him. Small business owner. Gerald Pham, 57 years old, ran a dry cleaning shop on Aldine Avenue that had been in his family for 23 years. She walked in on a Tuesday afternoon in plain clothes, no cut, no patch, and asked for a same-day press on a jacket she'd brought along for cover. And while she waited, she watched Gerald Pham move around his shop with the particular careful movements of a man who was afraid of something and trying very hard not to show it. She came back the next morning. Same jacket, different excuse. This time she stayed longer and asked him how business was. The question landed on him like something heavy. He said fine. His hands said otherwise. The third visit she didn't bring the jacket. She sat down in the chair by the window, and she looked at him directly and she said, "Someone left me a photograph, Mr. Pham. I think you know what it shows." Gerald Pham went absolutely still behind his counter. Then slowly he sat down, and he talked. It had started 4 months ago. A woman came into his shop, Iron Magnolia cut, confident walk, the kind of presence that filled the room before she said a word. She told him her name was Chrome, and she represented the Iron Magnolia Stories MC. She told him the club had been watching his block, and there were elements in the area that could create problems for a business like his. She told him the club offered protection, community protection she called it, to local businesses who wanted to maintain a good relationship with the neighborhood. The monthly rate was $800. Gerald had heard about Iron Magnolia. Everybody in Harlan County had. He knew their reputation. Women who helped people, who showed up when things went wrong, who had a code. He couldn't make sense of what was happening. But Chrome was standing in his shop in full Iron Magnolia colors, and speaking with the absolute authority of someone who had every right to be there. And when he hesitated, she leaned forward and said, "You don't want to find out what happens to the businesses that don't maintain good relationships." He paid. He'd been paying every month for 4 months. He wasn't the only one. He knew of at least 3 others on his block. The Vietnamese restaurant 2 doors down, the print shop on the corner, the woman who ran the alterations place across the street. All of them paying, none of them talking about it, the way people don't talk about things when they're ashamed and afraid in equal measure. Dora listened to all of it without moving. When Gerald finished, she looked at him for a long moment. "Why didn't you go to the police?" she asked. Gerald looked at his hands. "Because she was Iron Magnolia," he said quietly. "I didn't know who to trust." Dora felt that land, felt the full weight of it, what it meant that Chrome had used the patch not just to threaten, but to confuse. To make these people feel like there was nowhere to turn because the people you'd normally turn to were the ones threatening you. That was the particular cruelty of it, not just the money, the isolation. "You can trust me," Dora said. Gerald looked up at her. Really looked. The way people look when they're deciding if they can afford to believe something. "How do I know that?" he said. "Because I'm here," she said, "and I came alone." She had the full picture by the end of day 3. 4 businesses on Aldine Avenue, $3,200 a month, 4 months running, and at least 2 other women in the club who knew about it and had said nothing. Not participants, but aware. That was the "she's not the only one" on the back of the photograph. Someone in Iron Magnolia had found out, couldn't bring themselves to go to the police, couldn't bring themselves to go to Dora, and had left an envelope under a tire instead. Dora sat with that for a long time. She understood it. She didn't like it. The silence was its own kind of damage, the kind that let something spread, that should have been stopped at the root, but she understood it. Chrome had been in the club for 6 years. She had friendships inside those walls, history, loyalty of the complicated kind that makes people choose silence over action, because action means something irreversible happens, and you can't take it back. Dora understood all of that, and she was going to walk through every bit of it anyway. She sent Chrome a text on Thursday evening, 6 words, "Compound, tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., alone." Chrome replied in under a minute. "Everything okay?" Dora looked at those 2 words on her screen for a moment, then she put the phone down without answering. Chrome pulled up to the compound at 5:58. That was Chrome. Always early, always prepared, always 2 steps ahead of where she needed to be. She rode a black Softail that she'd rebuilt from the frame herself over 18 months, and she parked it with the precise, unhurried movements of a woman who was very good at projecting calm. Dora was already outside, leaning against the fence post at the entrance, arms crossed, coffee in one hand. She waited until Chrome's engine cut and the compound went quiet. Then she held up the photograph, just held it up, said nothing. Chrome looked at it from across the parking lot. Something happened in her face, fast, a series of things that moved through too quick to name all of them. But the one that Dora clocked, the one that told her everything before a single word was spoken, was not surprise. It was calculation. Chrome was not surprised, she was calculating. She got off the bike, walked across the lot with the same measured pace she'd arrived with, and stopped 6 feet from Dora, and looked at the photograph, and then looked at Dora and said, "Where'd you get that?" "Doesn't matter," Dora said. Her voice was flat and completely empty of anything except the business at hand. Gerald Pham, the restaurant on Aldine, the print shop, the alterations place. She watched Chrome's face as she named each one. 4 months, $3,200 a month, Iron Magnolia colors. Chrome looked at her steadily. "I can explain." "Don't," Dora said, just that, one word, and the weight of it was such that Chrome actually stopped. "Don't explain," Dora said. "Don't tell me about money problems or whatever justification you've been carrying around. Don't tell me it was small, or that nobody got physically hurt, or that you were going to stop." She took 1 step forward. "Because I need you to understand what you actually did. You put on this patch that 21 women have bled and sacrificed and built for 9 years, and you used it to terrorize people who had nowhere to turn. You made Gerald Pham afraid to walk into his own shop. You made 4 families on Aldine Avenue feel like the people who were supposed to protect them were the threat. Her voice hadn't risen a single degree. It didn't need to. That's what you did. Not borrow the name, not made a mistake. You weaponized everything this club stands for against the exact people this club exists to protect. Chrome's jaw was set, but her eyes were doing something different from her jaw. They were doing something that looked, underneath everything, like a person who had known this moment was coming, and had been dreading it, and had arrived at it anyway. What are you going to do? Chrome said. I'm going to ask you one question first, Dora said, and I need the truth, not the version that makes you look better, the truth. She held Chrome's gaze. Is there anyone else in this club running something I don't know about? A long silence. Chrome looked at the ground, then back up. No, she said, just me. The others, Jade and Santos, knew something was off, but they didn't know what. They didn't ask, and I didn't tell. Dora absorbed that, filed it. You're sure? I'm sure. Dora nodded once. Then here's what happens. Today you go to every business on Aldine Avenue, and you returned every dollar, every cent, in person. You look them in the eye and you return it. She paused. And then you come back here, and you put your cut on that table, and you walk out of this compound for the last time. Something moved across Chrome's face. The set of her jaw didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. The thing that lives behind the part people show. The part that's just the person, without performance. You're not going to the police, she said, not quite a question. Gerald Pham and the others will make their own decisions, Dora said. That's not mine to control. What I can control is what happens inside these walls. She looked at Chrome one final time. You had 6 years. You had my trust. You had a patch that meant something, and you chose this. She lowered the photograph. I can't make you understand what that cost, but you need to go pay the debt you made. Chrome said nothing for a long moment. Then she put her helmet back on, got on the Softail, rode out the gate without looking back. Dora stood in the parking lot alone after Chrome left. The morning was getting louder. Birds, a truck on Route 9 in the distance, the compound starting its slow wake-up sounds. She stood there for a while and let it be loud around her while she stayed quiet inside it. Chrome made every repayment that day. Dora knew because Gerald Pham called her at 4 in the afternoon. His voice was different from the first time she'd heard it. Not exactly lighter, because some things don't get light right away, but different. Like a man who has been holding something heavy for a long time, and has finally been allowed to set it down. She came in, he said, gave back every dollar. Didn't make excuses. A pause. She looked, I don't know, like she knew. She knew, Dora said. Are you going to be okay? Gerald asked, which surprised her. This man who shot Chrome had been shaking down for 4 months, asking if she was going to be okay. She held the phone for a second. Yeah, she said, we'll be okay. Chrome's cut was on the table in the main room when Dora walked in that evening, folded, patch face up, the way you lay a flag. Dora looked at it for a long time. Then she picked it up and carried it to the back room and put it in the storage box where they kept the cuts of members who had passed. Not because Chrome deserved to be honored, but because 6 years was 6 years, and the women who had ridden next to Chrome for 6 years deserved to have that history held with some gravity, instead of thrown in a trash can. That distinction mattered to Dora. The distinction between what someone did and what they once were. It mattered. It didn't change the outcome. It didn't earn Chrome forgiveness she hadn't asked for, but it meant you handled the ending with the same care you'd handled everything else, because that was the code. And the code didn't have exceptions for when it was inconvenient. She called a full club meeting that night, 20 women in the room, Chrome's seat empty. Dora stood at the head of the table and told them everything, not a version of it, every fact in order, without editorializing. The photograph, the businesses, the 4 months, the repayments, what Chrome had said, and what Dora had said back. When she finished, the room was very quiet. Then Rooster said, Jade and Santos knew something was wrong. I know, Dora said. She looked at Jade and Santos across the table. Both of them were looking at the tabletop. That conversation happened separately, tonight. She paused. But I want every person in this room to hear something first. She looked around. All of them. Every face. We built this club on one thing. That when people see this patch, when they see Iron Magnolia, they feel safer, not more afraid, safer. Her voice was even and quiet, and reached every corner of that room. What happened on Aldine Avenue was a betrayal of every person we have ever helped, every door we have ever opened, every person who ever ran to this gate because they believed we were the good guys. She stopped. That cannot happen again, ever. If someone in this club sees something that compromises what this patch means, you come to me. You come directly to me. You don't sit with it. You don't look away. You come to me, and we handle it. She looked around the room one final time. Because the patch only means what we make it mean. Every single day, every single choice, that's the only way it means anything. The room stayed quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Not the quiet of people trying to process something terrible, the quiet of people who have just been reminded of something true, and are deciding to hold it. Beck said nothing, but she put both hands flat on the table in front of her. The Iron Magnolia gesture for I'm with you. I've always been with you. One by one, around the table, every hand went flat. Dora looked at those hands, and for just one moment, in the quiet of that room, with the weight of the week and the cost of it, and the thing that had been lost and the thing that had survived, she let herself feel all of it. She didn't show it, she just felt it, privately. The way leaders feel things when nobody's watching because the ones watching need you to be steady. Then she straightened up. We ride Saturday, she said, all of us, Aldine Avenue, slow roll, windows down on every business we pass. She paused. They need to see the patch and know what it means again. Nobody argued. Nobody ever argued with Dora Reyes when she said something that was simply, completely, undeniably right. They rode Aldine Avenue on Saturday morning. 19 bikes, chrome spot empty in the formation, the gap deliberate, visible. A piece of the story being told without words. Gerald Pham was standing outside his dry cleaning shop when they came through. He had his arms crossed, and he watched them pass. And when Dora's bike came level with his door, she looked at him directly, and nodded once. Gerald Pham nodded back. Down the block, the Vietnamese restaurant, the print shop, the alterations place, every business they had failed. Not failed to protect, because Iron Magnolia hadn't known, but failed in the sense that their name had been used as a weapon, against the very people it was supposed to shield. They owed this street something. A slow roll, 19 bikes, the rumble of engines on an early Saturday morning, moving through those blocks with purpose, and with weight. It wasn't enough. Nothing would be fully enough, but it was real, and it was done. And in Dora's experience, the things that were real and done mattered more than the things that were perfect and weren't. Jade and Santos stayed in the club. The conversation Dora had with them separately was one of the hardest of the 9 years she'd led Iron Magnolia. Not because she was angry, but because they were, at themselves, in the particular crushing way of people who know they could have stopped something and didn't, and now have to carry that knowing. She didn't let them carry it alone. She told them what she had told Chrome, in different words. The patch only means what you make it mean every day. You made the wrong choice this time. You're going to make the right one from here. And the way you make the right one is you don't look away again. Not ever. They understood. Chrome left Harlan County. No drama, no social media, no side of the story offered publicly. She just went, which was its own kind of statement, the kind that doesn't need words. The 4 businesses on Aldine Avenue never filed a police report. That was their right. Dora didn't ask them to, and didn't ask them not to. What she did do 6 weeks after the slow roll was organize a block event. Iron Magnolia partnering with 4 local businesses for a community afternoon. Food, music, the club's annual toy drive kickoff. Gerald Pham ran the whole thing from his shop's parking lot. At one point during the afternoon he found Dora standing near the fence, and he walked over and stood next to her, and they both looked out at the block. Kids running, music going, bikes parked in a line, along the curb gleaming in the October sun. You didn't have to do this, he said. Yeah, we did, Dora said. Gerald looked at her. You know, when she first came in, I thought maybe I'd been wrong about Iron Magnolia, that maybe what people said about you wasn't true. He paused. I'm glad I was wrong about being wrong. Dora looked at the block, at her club, at 19 women who had shown up and were still showing up the way they always had, the way they always would. "So am I," she said. The music played, the engines gleamed in the sun. The patch meant what it had always meant, Iron Magnolia.